All right, Shalom. I want to start by giving all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Bahakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone who teach and rule well, and also to their elders, the men that taught them. I pray the Lord have peace, blessings, and mercy upon the households of the hopeful elect. This is the brother Shammah Wan from the Great Millstone Houston Church. And real quick, I want to come with a lesson. Just meditating on something that Apostle Gabar mentioned from this weekend sit down from the apostles, and just talking about how he mentioned how the prophets, the believers, the teachers, pretty much the household of faith are the main characters in the Lord's movie, and saying that because we got the script, we understand the will of the Lord quickened our spirits, brought us to life with this truth. So everybody on the outside is pretty much an extra in this movie because they really don't have what the Lord's hopeful elect have, right? Those who are seeking Yahweh Bashim, Yahweh Shah, those who are hoping to be saved, man. All right, so with that being said, me and the elder Yagadar was talking, and he mentioned, he said, we can't let these extras dictate our spirit. When he said that, it was just like, cherry on top of something I was already meditating about. So, Lord willing, I'm gonna put it on wax and be edifying to the Lord's elect. So thinking about that, can't let these extras dictate our spirit. And just thinking about self-control, thinking about, our walk on a day-to-day, with this treasure that we got, So Proverbs chapter 16 and I'll start at verse 32 in the NLT. It says, better to be patient than powerful. Better to have self-control than to conquer a city. We may throw the dice, but the Lord determines how they fall. So, just thinking about our walk. It's better to have a patient spirit than to be mighty and powerful, right? Actually being able to, if you understand what patience is to suffer. Being able to actually suffer, being able to endure things that are uncomfortable, and it's a broad field. The field is broad, but having patience is better than being powerful. Then it says, better to have self-control than to conquer a city. And that's important with this truth. With this truth that we have, the Lord is looking at our performance. And the Lord is in control, just like we read, but the Lord determines how they fall, right? We could throw the dice, but at the end of the day, the Lord is in control of everything. In the major things that the Lord is looking at, from those who have faith, is how we perform with that faith. That's why whenever, we suffer, the Lord expects the faithful to endure, because everybody suffers, but not everybody endures. Not everybody, can endure without breaking, just certain thoughts. So again, better to be patient than powerful, better to have self-control than to conquer a city. Somebody could be mighty and powerful, but when it comes to, them ruling themselves, they have no control. Do all type of, great and mighty works, but when it comes to yourself, it doesn't add up, But just thinking about the mindset of having self-control, overall. But it says, we may throw the dice, but the Lord determines how they fall. Let me go here in John chapter 17 and verse 13. Some words that the Lord gave to the disciples, it being in the world, what to expect being in the world. John 17 and 13, and this applies to us, still to this day. It says, and now I come to thee, and these things and now I come to thee, and these things I speak in the world, that they might have my joy filled in them. Verse 14, it says, I have given them my word, and the world hath hated them, because they are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. And just thinking about how I mentioned at the beginnings, being around a bunch of extras, being around a lot of people that don't have the, the spiritual insight, that don't have a quickened spirit. Things are not supposed to be perfect and running smooth, because it's just how should I say it? Things aren't in sync right now. Things are not aligned, uprightly and righteously. So with that being said, how it said in verse 14, I have given them thy word, and the world hath hated them. And that's exactly how it is. After we receive the word of truth, we move different. We conduct ourselves different. In thinking, how the scriptures say, when you come to serve the Lord, prepare your soul for temptation. That's a part of, that's just automatically what comes with it. So, having self-control is always at the forefront, just thinking about how the Lord, deals with us. Basically, putting us through situations to see what we'll be made of, so to speak. All right. So it says, because they are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. So, yeah, we're hated. We'll be rejected. We'll get treated differently, just like Yahushua did. Right. And that's expected, because, we don't, how should I say it? The extras don't dictate our spirit. That's the best way I can say. So if they hate us, guess what? It's supposed to be like that. Verse 15, it says, I pray not that thou shouldest take them out of the world. So Yahushua is saying, look, it ain't no getting out of it. It's more so just getting through it, the correct way. I pray not that thou shouldest take them out of the world, but that thou shouldest keep them from the evil. Hold up real quick. Let me see a little note I had. Yeah, that's cool. Let's keep reading. Oh no, I found it. Just a little note. It says temptations and interferences are expected, right? But allowing them to shape your spirit is a failure of focus. Not it says allowing them to shape your spirit is a failure of focus. So again, temptation and interferences are expected. Allowing them to shape your spirit is a failure of focus. And that's pretty much the mind frame of this lesson. Like I said, just meditating on what Apostle Gabar said and Elder Yagadah, with our little conversation, him mentioning that, but Yahushua said it plainly. We'll be here, amongst this shit, being hated and mistreated, and, however which way we have to suffer. But the Lord said, look, instead of taking them out of the situation, just, keep them going through it. So verse 16, it says, John 17:16, they are not of the world, even as I am not of the world. All right. And that's the thing, we ain't in this fight alone. Yahushua went through the same things, or we're going through some of the same things Yahushua, himself went through. The men who sought after Yahushua, men who lost their life for the sake of righteousness, we go through the same things that they experienced, So 2nd Ezra 7:12. Let's jump here real quick. The point is in 14. It says, then were the entrances of this life, or of this world, made narrow, full of sorrow and travail. They are but few and evil, full of perils, and very painful. And that's how it is, because understanding we're on this earth where the place of judgment is. We're not here to, to receive a red carpet in a golden spoon, in a pacifier. We're here to receive our judgment. The Lord is righteous in all his ways. So whenever, things fall, across our path, we got to accept it and keep moving. Because that's the conditions that we're in. Like we just read in verse 12, then were the entrances of this world made narrow. If you read up, it goes into, Adam falling. And that's how we all came into that, right? The trickle effect, so to speak. It says, full of sorrow and travail, they are but few, and evil full of perils, full of dangers. All right, a short life full of evils and dangers, and very painful. All right, but that's not the end all be all. Like it says, that's just the passage. All right, there's still an exit. You know, it's not a dead end. That's just the passage, how it's gonna be. You know, presently, verse 13, it says, for the entrances of the elder world were wide and sure, and brought immortal fruit. Verse 14, here's the point. 2 Ezra 7:14, it says, if then they that live labor not to enter these straight and vain things, they can never receive those that are laid up for them. So just showing you the straight and vain things real quick. That word straight, just let me highlight it and look it up. It says straight, S-T-R-A-I-T, a bad or a difficult situation. It says used in reference to a situation characterized by a specified degree of trouble or difficulty. All right, so it says again, verse 14, if then they that live labor not to enter into these straits, right, the positions of difficulty. And a lot of people, well, let me finish it, straight and vain things, they can never receive those that are laid up for them. And those things aren't just so comfortable to approach. That's why the world looks at us, you know, like we're crazy, you know, because we understand this is a part of, you know, entering into the kingdom. We got to suffer. We got to go through a bunch of difficulties and a bunch of vain things, so to speak, because, you know, the shit we go through is temporal. This ain't the end all be all. That's why, like, having self-control in the heat of the moment, or self-control right now, is so important, you know, to our future, because it's a part of our performance. You know, it says I'll keep reading verse 15, but that was the point. Verse 14 again, if then they that live labor not to enter these straight and vain things, they can never receive those that are laid up for them. So that's a part of the walk, you know, that's a part of our walk to enter into the kingdom, Lord willing. Verse 15, now therefore, why disquietest thou thyself, seeing thou art but a corruptible man? And why art thou moved, whereas thou art but mortal? You know, hey, we just earth and ashes. Really, it's all the, you know, wearing ourselves out, the stressing about certain things. Because at the end of the day, nothing is in our control. Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahweh Shah governs the whole world and everything in it. Like it tells you in Ecclesiasticus or Sirach, the 18th chapter, starting at the top. It says, verse 16, last verse, 2 Ezra 7:16, why hast thou not considered in thy mind this thing that is to come, rather than that which is present? Yeah, I'll end it right there. Yeah, that was it for that 2 Ezra. But let me close it out with this. This is Proverbs chapter 14 and verse 29 in the NLT. It says, so, you know, with that being said, Proverbs 14 and 29 in the NLT, people with understanding control their anger. A hot temper shows great foolishness. So just going to self-control. You know, certain things that we go through, it could be frustrating. You know, it could piss you off, whatever. Not just on like, oh man, bad things happening. No, you know, troubles, perils, just things that aren't comforting to your flesh. All right, but that's a part of the walk. How the elder said, can't let these extras dictate our spirit. So at the end of the day, you know, especially knowing that we got the truth, you know, we got these treasures in earthen vessels like the scriptures tell us. So people with understanding control their anger. Why? Because we look at what's to come, not now. You know, understanding the Lord is bringing these things to us to see how we go react. The niggas without the truth move certain ways, and it's predictable. If you have this truth, it will be, you know, it will be the unpredictable, you know, the ways that aren't common to the flesh, because the spirit is applied. It says a hot temper shows great foolishness. Yeah, you just pop off and move off of emotions quickly because you're so small-minded and you really don't see, you know, further than what's presented before you. And I'm speaking to myself first and foremost, because some shit happened this morning, and after hearing Apostle Gabar say that and you know, talk with the elder, it was like, bruh, this word is truly comforting because we know, you know, we know how things are gonna play out, and that's where our faith lies. So I pray this was edifying to the Lord's elect. Hey, until the next time, Lord willing, shalom.